Today on the Tristen Law Show, you're getting a bonus episode, and you'll get to hear a little bit about my pro wrestling journey. Be warned, because it turns into a heated argument towards the end. And that's today on the Tristen Law Show. Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. You unique parties, you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it's your first time here, new episodes drop Wednesdays, and welcome. I'm your host, Tristen Law, and I'm glad that you've returned for another personality in and out of the pro wrestling ring. And this time, it's somebody that you know. I mean, well, it's somebody you know if it's not your first time here, but it's me. This episode is slotted as a bonus episode because, like all the other bonus episodes, it doesn't really fit into the lineup of the regular interviews. So what I do is I just separate it out, and here we are. I got interviewed by my acquaintance, the cheapskate pro wrestler Matt Rivera, who you heard on episode 13, right here on the Tristen Law Show. And I suggest you check out that episode if you have not already done so, and you can go ahead and you can find him on YouTube and subscribe to his channel and stuff like that as well. I talk about my earliest memories of pro wrestling, moving to the Bronx and falling in and out of love with pro wrestling, and then falling in and out of love again with pro wrestling. Matt also puts me on the spot by making me tell our Forbidden Road stories. When I return, you'll get that and much more, but I'm sure you don't want to miss this. I am Tristen Law, and this is a bonus episode of the Tristen Law Show.
Hello to all of you Tristen Law Show podcast listeners. This is Frank Mandolini. You may not recognize this voice. I am the Italian podcaster who talks about the business side of wrestling. Yeah, I know, it's quite niche. But if you look for last minute wrestling podcast on all of your social media and wherever you get your podcast, you'll be amazed to find interviews with people such as Rob Van Dam or Matthew Gregg from Botchamania and many others, so you get to know many aspects of the wrestling business that normally you don't hear in wrestling podcasts. Because let's face it, who wants to hear another guy talk about Monday Night Raw? Yeah, me neither. So guys, go to lmwpodcast.com or search for LMW Podcast everywhere in the interweb. And remember guys, this is Frank Mandolini from the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, and you stay safe.
What's going on, guys? I am the cheapest wrestler in the world, Matt Rivera, and we are back. We are back with another episode of my wrestling journey. And this episode is all about Law of Attraction. And if you don't know Law of Attraction, it is one of the best tag teams on the East Coast. Well, something like that, more or less, right? Definitely one of the most entertaining, one of the most fun tag teams. Anyway, let me introduce my guest at this time. None other than the other half of Law of Attraction, Tristen Law. What's going on, brother?
Hey, nothing much, Matt. What's going on with you? Thanks for having me. I see Pop Filter Studios is going on behind you. I'm sitting here thinking, like, in my corner, I need something for my corner. But, you know, I don't know what I'd call it. Maybe 1.21 gigawatt studio? I don't know, but I got to figure something out.
Something like that. Can I just say, I love the quality of your video, man. Like, you have that pro setup. I love it.
Let me tell you, it's a little corner that I have sitting up over here. I got my Rodecaster Pro here. You know, I got my studio lights here. You know, the studio lights, they're real studio lights. So, you know, I'm sweating like, you know, I'm sweating like I'm standing out in the middle of New York City in the subway in the summertime. So, you know, yeah, it's my little setup. It's my little thing that I do.
Dude, it's worth the sweat, man, because you look great.
Thank you. You look great yourself, too.
No, stop. Anyway, so like I was saying, Law of Attraction. I never thought when I started wrestling I would ever be part of a tag team, but sometimes life just puts things in a plate for you. It kind of just makes everything happen so easily. But before we jump into how we met and how things kind of just fell together, let's talk about you, dude. Like, what made you decide to get into wrestling? Tell the people a little bit about your history.
So I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. There's a lot of things I wanted to be when I was a kid. I wanted to be a train conductor. I wanted to be a bus driver in the city, and I wanted in New York City, and I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And and I remember walking into my grandfather's room when we lived in Brooklyn at 5 years old and seeing The Undertaker on the television, and I was just like, I was hooked. I was hooked. And I just wanted to do it. And I remember thinking, one day I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get drafted by the WWF. But, that's not really how it works. There's no real big draft. I mean, there is a draft, but they're not drafting people, out of high school, out of college.
Right.
So, life moves on. We eventually moved to the Bronx when I was 10 years old. We didn't have cable. And we eventually got cable because the building was brand new. One of my buildings was a part of the burning of the Bronx. It was back in the 70s where landlords used to burn down the buildings to collect the tax money and the insurance money and get out.
That's terrible.
So living on the block that I lived, 103rd and Walton Avenue in the Bronx, which is actually the building over from where Tupac lived back in the day. A lot of people don't know that Tupac is from the Bronx. Yep, and he even has a song called My Block, and he talks about 103rd and Walton Avenue. Shout out to Tupac in heaven. But yeah, so they wired the building for cable, and one of the first two channels I watched was Nickelodeon and USA Network because I wanted to see wrestling. And I remember watching the Attitude Era, bro, and I was so hooked, man. I was hooked. And I remember going to the gift shop. We had a little gift shop that's usually in New York City, is ran by Asians, and we go down there, and, bro, you can get anything that you want. And so I spent $5. I get me a little picture frame with Stone Cold Steve Austin in it. I get one with The Rock. I get one with DX. And, I used to get the WWF and Raw magazines. I had a scam that I used to run when I was a kid to get those magazines. And what
about those?
Yeah, and what I used to do is for the scam, and let me tell you, I don't recommend stealing. I don't recommend anybody doing it. It's not nice to steal. I was a dumb kid, and my mother wasn't a fan of it. But what I used to do was back in the day, Matt, because you remember when you get the magazine and it's the card in the middle that you got to fill out to get a subscription?
Uh-huh.
So a friend would have a magazine, so you get the card, you fill out the subscription. You would write, eat butts, and you'd write your address on it, and you'd mail it. A couple weeks later, you'd get a magazine, the WWF or the Raw magazine. So when you get the WWF Raw magazine, they'll send you like about, 2-3 episodes, and then they start looking for their money. So then they said, hey, we need you to pay if you want to keep the subscription going. So what I would do is I would get another card out the third magazine and write another name. My name is Matt Rivera. And I drop that in the mailbox and keep coming. So my mother would ask me, why do you keep getting all these magazines in the mail? Who's paying for them? So, feeling myself, thinking I'm so smart, I told her the scheme that I was running, and she wasn't a fan of that. So she would find them in the mailbox and she would throw them away.
Serves you right.
Right.
Serves you right.
Exactly. So I used to take the magazines and cut out all the pictures. And the binders that you have with the plastic on the inside, on the back and the front? Bro, yep. I would freaking slip all kinds of wrestling things in there. Like my notebook was so pro wrestling centric in middle school during the Attitude Era. At that time, bro, I wanted to be a wrestler. It was me, my friend Jamel Pritchett, and our other friend Pedro. We were DX. We'd walk around the school telling everybody to suck it. We do crotch chops. I was Triple H. Pedro was China. Pedro was China. But he had to be somebody. He was in DX. That's when DX is 3 people. And Jamel was Shawn Michaels, and that's pretty much how we did it. But if fast forward, life goes on. I became an older teenager, and I was more interested in chasing girls than watching pro wrestling. And I lost a little sight with that. But I remember sitting in my friend's room, Greg and Nicholas, shout out to them, and we were sitting there. And they were telling me, dude, you're never going to make it in this wrestling thing. It's stupid. You're going to waste your time. You're not going to make any money. And I told them all I was thinking about was the episode of The Cosby Show when Theo was there telling his dad that he'll eat bologna sandwiches. I was like, yo, dude, I will eat a bologna sandwich to make it. I am going to be a pro wrestler.
There you go.
So fast forward, we moved down to Florida, right? Because at 17, moved down to Florida, moved down to Orlando. And, we decided that we want to be, all highty-toity at this point. We want to get dish TV. We want to get satellite. So great. The problem with the satellite, though, is that for some strange reason, every day around 10 a.m., it would just cut out. It would cut out. It wouldn't work. But it would come back on like at 10 p.m. at night. Wrestling was already done by that time, right? 10, 11. It was already done by that time. So I was more interested in working and, trying to chase girls, because when they tell you, one of the things they tell you in New York is when you go down to Florida, all you got to do is tell them that you're from New York. And let me tell you, them girls want to like you. But you want to know the truth, Matt? It's wrong. Because you go down there and you tell them, hey, you go, hey, baby, I'm from New York. They go, I'm from New York, too. Damn, that's not how that was supposed to work. You're supposed to say, I'm from Florida. And one of the things I learned, nobody was from Florida. So anyway, fast forward. I started working at Universal Orlando. And I was not really into wrestling. I wasn't watching wrestling. I wasn't keeping up with it because I couldn't watch it. And I remember one of my friends, his name is Ed, we worked together at Universal outside the Jaws ride at the arcade, at the Carnival Games. He came up to me and said, hey, I heard that you used to like wrestling back in the day. I said, yeah, back in the day I used to like wrestling. I don't like it anymore. I don't follow it. He goes, well, there's wrestling in the sound stages at Universal. I said, that sounds cool. He goes, you want to go? Nah, bro, I think I'm good. And he goes, but it's this afternoon. You should go. I think you would like it. It has a lot of people there. It has Jeff Hardy there. Nah, I don't have any money. He goes, it's free. Damn. All right, you got me. All right, so I went.
Ran out of excuses.
I ran out of excuses. So I went, and it was the pay-per-view where Macho Man Randy Savage came back. And I remember standing on the bleachers as a 19-year-old kid screaming, bro, I had no voice. The next day, they used to do the Impact tapings at the Universal. And I said to him, hey, dude, you going tonight? He goes, no. I went, and I went every night thereafter. So nice. After that, I was like, you know what? The bug bit me again. Man, I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a wrestler. So I started doing some research. At that point, I was a heavier kid. Let me tell you, I always liked to eat, all right? I was always a heavy kid. I love food. I love it. And fair enough. And I remember, okay, cool. You want to be a wrestler, so the first thing you got to do is you got to get into some kind of shape. So I had to go learn to work out. And I remember looking at schools. I wanted to go to Tugboats School in Florida, but it was kind of too far. So then Devon Dudley was working in a pro wrestling school in downtown Orlando. It was only maybe about 25 minutes from where I was living at the time with my mom. And I sent him an email hoping that he was going to write me back. But Devon no-sold me. I never got an email from Devon.
Oh, testify, bro.
Right.
Testify.
So the reason why I got no-sold was because he and Bubba were actually working on opening up their own facility in Kissimmee, Florida, which is next door to Disney. And it was what they wanted to do. So I remember going onto the dirt sheets, and because that same friend that introduced me to Impact Wrestling, I went to the dirt sheets and I was typing my life away onto the dirt sheets, and it goes, Pro Wrestling School's opening in Kissimmee, Florida with Bubba Ray and Brother Devon. I need to apply to this.
Right.
So I went ahead and I applied. I said, this is the time. This is the time. So I went ahead and I applied, and I got a phone call from a guy, and I swear to God it was Bubba. He didn't tell me that. His name wasn't anything close to that, but he was feeling me out to see how serious I was. He was assessing my level of seriousness. And at the end, he goes, all right, kid, well, you got to take a physical, and this is how much it costs, and, this is all that you got to do it. Once it's all done, let us know. I said, cool, no problem. So I started working out. I started eating right. Let me tell you, bro, I had abs, bro. There's 2 times in my life I was in shape. Before wrestling school, yeah, bro, I had abs, bro. Let me tell you. I was working. I was still a heavy kid, but I was still, I was working out. When I went to Team 3, I became a more in shape, and I learned how to work out even more. But I got a phone. I eventually got my physical, and I contacted Team 3D, and I let them know that I was ready. So I get a phone call. Hi, this is Bubba. I go, hey, Mark, because Bubba Ray's real name is Mark. I go, hi, Mark. He goes, Bubba. Okay, your name is Bubba. And thinking about it now, I'm like, I'm such a Mark. Why am I calling this guy by his first name?
I know your name.
Right.
I know your name.
Why am I calling you by your first? We're not friends. I don't know you. I don't go to your bar mitzvah or anything like that. I'm calling you Mark. No, you told me your name is Bubba. Your name is Bubba. Right. So I went down there, and the rest is history. I swiped my credit card, and I became a member of Team 3D Academy. I was down there with QT Marshall. I was down there with Leva Bates. I was down there with Serpentico. I was down there with John Cruz. And a lot of other good people, Tamatanga and all those guys. Yeah, we all went to wrestling school together.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you had such an elite class, man. That's crazy.
They were a lot more advanced than I was. I was still brand new. But I can say this though, Team 3D Academy, let me tell you, there's a lot of things that I learned from there. And they send out good people. And I learned a lot, even though I didn't finish with them because I moved back to New York. I learned a lot from them.
That's awesome. Wow. I learned some new stuff today. Every day is a school day. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you moved back to New York. And I believe it probably didn't take long for you and I to meet each other under some kind of unusual circumstances, if I, say so myself. So very oddly enough, I started dating a girl at the time, and she says to me, oh, my best girlfriend, her boyfriend, is a wrestler too. Now, at this point in time, I'm like, that's really weird. At that time, it's not like you just walked anywhere and people are like, oh yeah, I wrestle. No, very, very rare.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And they set us up to meet. Now, they both had the same name.
Right, they both were named Katie's, right.
Yes, which was very odd altogether. And then we meet, and we became friends after that. At that time, it wasn't like, we're going to be a tag team or anything like that. But it was like, okay, you wrestle and I wrestle. That's weird. I feel like it was destined for us to at least, be acquaintances in that moment.
Right.
And so many things happened after that, but it's one of those crazy life moments to me that I think back and I'm like, it just fell to place. I feel like it was just like handed on a silver platter. Like, here you go. He's going to be introduced to your life, and he's going to end up being in your life for a while. I didn't realize it at the time, but life was definitely handing me something. So we're both wrestling. Now, when you came to New York, you were in BWO, right?
Yeah, that was the school that I went to first when I came to New York, yes.
Right. And that with Richie Rotten, Preacher, Nunzio was helping out there at the time, which was and I think I did one show over there and trained there a few times. Right. Awesome place. Loved it there.
It was really funny how I got into BWO though. That story is so ironic. Like for me, I just feel like things just happen to me. And like that's why I believe, like, I'm not trying to get religious, but I'm telling you, like, God is good, and the things that God has done for me is amazing. So me, at the same way you and I met, how it was really crazy. Living in Orlando, me and my friends, it was me, Chris, April, and Michelle. The four of us lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, right? April and Chris were a couple at the time. And they befriended, they had a dog, and they befriended the neighbor downstairs. His name is Eric Cooper.
Okay.
Eric Cooper was a wrestler from New Jersey.
I was like, Eric Cooper. I was like, I know that name.
And he wrestled in Florida. So they go, oh, Tristen, you should meet him. Yeah, whatever. He's not a wrestler. And I went down and I started talking to him. I was like, oh, yeah, he's a wrestler. Yeah. So I go, where'd you train? He goes, yeah, I trained in New Jersey. I said, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then, so then I started riding with him on the road, and we started going around places. I wasn't wrestling. I wasn't trained. I was just his road dog, because it gets boring when you're going one way and there's nobody with you. Right. So I eventually decided to move to New York because, I got to follow Katie. Katie lived in New York, and I was trying to go back to New York. I go on the internet because I knew when I moved back to New York, I wanted to do wrestling. Right. So I went back to that same exact website that I used to find out that Bub and Devon were opening a school. I went back down just messing around. Nunzio's getting affiliated with a school in New Jersey. So I put in my address to where I was going to live and in New York and put it to the address of where the school is. It was only an hour. That's okay. I can do that. Yeah.
So that's not bad. Not bad at all.
So I'm excited, bro. I'm so excited. I'm more excited than a 13-year-old on his first time.
Right.
And I call Eric. I said, yo, bro, I found this wrestling school in New Jersey. It's affiliated with Nunzio, and it's about an hour from my house. He goes, oh, that's the place where I trained. The place that he was going to refer me to, which was BWO.
You never know, man. Life is crazy. Yep. So BWO. Now at this time, you and I were both relatively fresh in the game. It wasn't like we had, a plethora of matches under our belt. I think I left IWF at the time. I did a little stint in North Carolina. So like definitely less than 10 professional matches at the time for me. And I think one thing that was really cool about our relationship was we experienced a lot of new things together. We're like, oh, let's try out this place. Let's see what this connection leads to. And that brings me to TMPW.
I knew you were going to see it.
I have to bring it up. It's a very, very important part of our history here. So,
while everyone is working behind me to make the Tristen Law Show better, I wanted to take a quick timeout to ask you to subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars and leave a review. Now, let's get back to the show.
Long story short, TMPW was, I'm going to use the word infamous in the New Jersey wrestling scene for a handful of years, but not necessarily for the best reasons. So, and I don't want to dog it and kind of drag this topic on, but long story short, it didn't have the best people backing it up. Some of them were really good, but then there were some people holding it back and then ended up never flourishing. However, one thing that was really cool, and this is why I always say, kind of pay attention for people who are looking for opportunities, because you never know where you might get them. TMPW ended up leading us to East Coast Pro Wrestling.
Sure did.
And Forgotten Championship Wrestling.
Sure did.
Both of those stemmed from TMPW. So I always look at it and I'm like, dude, no regrets. We went there, we did our thing, and we ended up getting noticed by 2 other promotions that were at a higher caliber.
Right.
So before we go into ECPW, because that I feel like was the long-lasting one, I want to talk a little bit about Forgotten Championship Wrestling, because you and I both feel, we just talked about this maybe a month ago,
right?
It's one of the best moments in our career. So we went to Forgotten Championship Wrestling. We find out that we're going to be in this epic match in the, what is it? I always forget what the stadium is called.
I think it's the MCU Stadium. It's where the Brooklyn Cyclones play the minor league baseball in Coney Island, Brooklyn.
Yes, and we find out we're going to be in a very epic 3-on-3 tag team match where it's myself, you, Damian Darling, against 3 WWE Hall of Famers in Tito Santana, Nikolai Volkov, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Tell me, what were your thoughts when we arrived at that event?
So my thoughts when we arrived at that event was, bro, we made it. Like, we're walking around the bowels of this stadium. This isn't a high school gym. This isn't American Legion. This isn't in the parking lot of a Burger King, because you wrestled in the parking lot of a Burger King. I was there for that.
Not one of my finer moments, but
we didn't wrestle in the storefront in Jersey City, New Jersey. We were wrestling on the field at MCU Park in Brooklyn, bro. If I was to die right then and there, I'd be like, you know what, bro, we made it. Yep. But we were walking around trying to sell merchandise, and nobody knew who we were. Dude, we were still so new to the business, the plastic was still on us.
Yep.
That's how new that we were. But going through my mind and the feelings that I had, I was so nervous going into that match, because I was like, I've never wrestled a legend before. What if I hurt them? But, we went in there as the, what did they make us, the new Freebirds?
Something like that, right? New Freebirds, which looking back at now, I'm like, oh
yeah,
man, that
didn't age well,
yeah.
Right? There's a video floating around with me running around with the Confederate flag. If they can kill me, they would have killed me that night, because they hated me. Just imagine if
that happened now. Like,
bro, the people that were for the Confederate flag, they hated that I was carrying it. And the people that are not for the Confederate flag hated that I was carrying it. They hated me.
That was amazing. I mean, I look back at that now, man, and I agree with you. If there was ever a time where my ego was stroked, oh man, just all over the place, man. I was on cloud 9. It was such an epic moment. It was such an epic event. I think to this day, like thousands of people there. I think it's the biggest event I've ever, wrestled for. And, oh, man, definitely a highlight, dude. A highlight of our career for sure, man. I just love that so much. I had to bring that up. Now, one other thing I wanted to bring up on the opposite end, like I said, there was 2. We did Forgotten Championship Wrestling, but that also led us to East Coast Pro Wrestling. Now, East Coast Pro Wrestling, you still wrestle for today.
Yes.
And we've had so many opportunities through there, man. Like, I think about it now, Gino Caruso definitely loved using us as a tag team. We had some singles, stuff too, but as a unit, I mean, we worked Jim the Anvil Neidhart. We worked with Maria Kanellis. We've worked with Nunzio a few times. And I feel like the list goes on. There's probably some others that I'm forgetting, but I got to give a shout out to East Coast Pro Wrestling and Gino Caruso, because I always felt like he took care of us. I know you're still doing shows with them, and we'll get to that a little bit later, because I want to talk about what you're doing now, but we'll save that for the end. But got to give a shout out to East Coast Pro Wrestling. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, tell me a little bit about this place called Adrenaline Wrestling.
Oh God. Oh, okay. Okay. So you're going to give me the heat for Adrenaline Wrestling, but you're not going to take the heat for TMPW? Fine. Fine. So there was a time that, Matt, we just wanted to wrestle any and everywhere. Right. And I remember getting a message, I think it was a message on Facebook, and they said, hey, we saw your work. We'd love for you to come work for us. And they were in Rhode Island. And the people that were in that car was me, yourself, Steve Off. It was Dancing Mike. And I think there was always one other person, Murdoch, I think it was.
Murdoch, yeah.
Yep, it was the five of us in that car, and we all promised that we would never talk about it ever again. But you know what? We're going to talk about it for you. So I got the email on Facebook, and they wanted us to come up to Rhode Island. So I negotiated the fee, that we were going to get, so, we were taken care of, for the level that we were at. But I remember looking at the videos. They wanted me to look at their videos and say, hey, tell me what you think, because they were a brand new emerging wrestling organization.
Right.
So I'm looking at these videos, and I'm like, oh, well, you guys are dressed in, like, street clothes. And there are fans out there, like, what is this? They go, it's practice. I go, oh, you guys practice in front of fans? They go, yeah, that's what we do. Oh, okay. They go, yeah, but when we start, we're going to do some really big things and stuff like that. I said, oh, okay, fine, no problem. So eventually, dude, we get into the car, we do the do. Everybody comes into my house. We get my little Kia Spectra, and we drive all the way to Rhode Island. My first time to Rhode Island, and we get to this place. It's a warehouse, and on the floor below, they blew glass. Like that sounds weird, right? They take the glass and they blow it. They blow glass and they turn it into shapes and different. There's a guy downstairs that blew glass. So we got into the place and we started wrestling and stuff like that. And when we got there, the five of us looked at each other and go, this is a backyard fed that they have in a warehouse. And the issue with a backyard fed, with a backyard professional wrestling promotion, is that 99% of the time, the guys aren't formally trained. So guys that are trained are very apprehensive about working them because they don't want to get hurt. Mm-hmm. So we all got together and said, hey, we're going to just tell them that Nunzio wanted us to work and record a match because he wanted to see it. So we were able to get by with that. So I think you and I did a tag team match against Murdoch and Steve Off. And, was that how it was?
Yeah. I think so, right? Something like that. Yeah, no. It might have been Dancing Mike, but I guess it doesn't really matter. But go ahead.
So, I'm a big dude, and I always, no matter how much I weigh, I always bump heavy, right? Because I learned from Bubba Ray, from Bully Ray. Right. He's a big dude. He bumps heavy, and I always bump heavy. And the guy downstairs that was blowing the glass came upstairs, and he had a freaking fit because, his glass was rattling downstairs because I bumped big.
Right.
And he comes up into the ring in the middle of the match, and he's getting ready to fight us. So, we're getting ready to we crawl out the ring, and we get the chair and whatever. Like, this dude is a big dude too. He was a big Mama Luke. I thought we was gonna have to beat him up and run back to New York. So we were like, you know what? We're just gonna leave now. So I went over to the dude. I was like, yo, can I get our money? And ironically, all the wrestlers that were there, they're the ones that they paid for us to be there. Right. Because while we were wrestling, they were so into the match because they weren't trained. They were fans. Right. But yeah, that's Adrenaline Wrestling. And we were never supposed to talk about that, and we unsealed it.
Listen, the great thing about it is, especially back then, I feel like you have your mixed bag situations. There's some places you go and you're like, man, I would love to work for this place again. There's some places you go and you're like, never again will I work for this place. So you always have those mixed situations. I think when you're first starting off, especially, you kind of find what you like, what you don't like, where you'll come back to, where you'll never return to. And unfortunately, Adrenaline Wrestling was on that list of never return to.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another story I want to tell before we wrap this thing up, I want to talk a little bit about a show that we did in Middletown. Around this time, I think I had LASIK surgery. So I wasn't wrestling, but I had Gino Caruso was like, why don't you come down and do like a guest general manager sort of thing? Yeah, no problem. Now, recently, you had turned on me the last time I showed up for East Coast Pro Wrestling. So I think going into it, everyone was kind of like, all right, so at some point in time in this show, they're going to clash. Awesome. Perfect. I go in, I'm kissing babies, I'm schmoozing with the fans. Who would you guys like to see? What superstars would you like on the next show? You know, all that good stuff. People are genuinely like, oh, like I can make a decision like that, you know? And at the end, you were in the main event against Mike Iannuzzi, and I will never forget, because this moment to me was so epic. I turned on Mike Iannuzzi to help you win the match. I don't think I've ever received heat like that, man. Like, people were throwing the middle fingers in our face, telling us to suck it, screaming. Dude, tell me how good that feels as a heel.
Let me tell you, bro. You're talking about the match that took place at the flea market in Middletown, Orange County, New York.
Yep.
And let me tell you, if you were running for office, like you want to be the mayor of Middletown that day, you could have definitely gotten everybody in that building to vote for you. That was until you helped me win the match in the end. Because you even came out and you kicked the referee out of the match. Just so that match lives on YouTube somewhere. You kicked him out of the match because you want to make sure I didn't cheat. But little did they know that we already mended the fence and we were cool. And I went in there and I beat Mike Iannuzzi with your help, of course.
Yeah. Pretty much straight up. I mean, you didn't need my help, you know?
Right.
It was just kind of like, you know, nice gesture.
Right.
I felt like it was extending the olive branch.
Hey, why not?
You know what I mean?
Why not?
Yeah.
And it's not cheating. I mean, the referee would have disqualified me, you being the referee, if it was cheating. So I guess it was acceptable.
Definitely. Obviously.
I agree.
Tristen, man, it was great to have you on here, do some catching up. Before we go, two things. The first one is every guest that I've had on this so far, I've told them something really, really important. Kind of seems like a threat, but I don't mean it that way. I think it's more of a, compliments. You and I have never faced off in the ring. We've tagged together so many times, this law of attraction, but we've never faced each other in the ring. I recently announced that in the fall, I would be returning to professional wrestling. And I just want to let you know, we have to make this happen. Just once at least one time, you and I, law of attraction, head to head.
I'll tell you this, Matt. I did see the tweet that you sent to me at The Real Big Tris on Twitter, and you could always follow me at The Real Big Tris on Instagram as well, too. I didn't respond to that tweet. I didn't retweet that tweet. I don't think I even liked that tweet because you should know better, Matt, than to call me out talking about you want to fight me and see me in the ring. Bro, let me tell you something. You need to understand that everything is not good for you. And you challenging me is not good for you. And I didn't appreciate that. I thought that maybe in this whole entire time that maybe you got older, maybe you got a little bit of senile or something like that. I don't know. Hey, look, the question is what kind of crack you smoke? Because I don't understand what would even make you even want to dream that you were going to be. Let me tell you something, bro. If you ever in your life have something crazy like that again, you need to go to church and tell God that you need forgiveness. Because, bro, you don't want to step in the ring with me. You don't want the smoke. You don't want anything that I'm offering. You know, because I'm not the same person I was back in the day, bro. I'm just like nasty, bro. I'm just nasty. I do bad things to good people. And I don't care what I do to these people. And you know what? I appreciate the fact that you had me on your YouTube channel. You know, you were on my podcast, the Tristen Law Show, and I appreciate that. But, bro, I really don't appreciate you calling me out, telling me that, you know, you want to have a match with me. Let me tell you, all them other people that you call out, look, they need the exposure. They need the rub. They need somebody like you who has so many followers on YouTube that you were on the TLC channel. They need all that. Because you see, for me, I don't need that from you, Matt. If anything, you should be lucky that I'm even sitting here in front of you right now because I don't appreciate that you decided to come up out of your face. It's like the alien. The head opened, another head came out. How dare you come up out of your face and tell me that you want to wrestle me? Like, what do you think this is? Like, you think it's going to Six Flags and riding a roller coaster? You think it's an experience, bro? It's an experience that you don't want to experience. Trust me. Just let that one go. Trust me.
All right. I'm gonna let that breathe, dude. We're gonna let that breathe right there. You guys heard him. Tristen Law sounds like he says he's ready. He says he's ready. I don't know if he's ready, but we'll leave it right there. We'll find out soon enough what happens when the number one attraction, the cheapest wrestler in the world, Matt Rivera, meets Tristen Law. I have a feeling sooner than later. But before we go, Tristen, because I'm such a nice guy, why don't you tell the people what's going on with you now? How could they reach you? before I reach through here.
Let me tell you something. First off, take the bass out of your voice because you were the one that told me that you wanted to wrestle me, all right? You want to see me in the ring. And now because I cut a promo on you, you feel a certain kind of way, talking about you the cheapskate wrestler. Let me tell you something, bro. I will beat the change out of you, all right? Because I am not the one. I am not the one. Bro, ask about me. Look on YouTube and you need to type in Anthony Marcos versus Tristen Law. Right. I almost pulled that guy's chest hair out of his whole entire body. That guy didn't think that he was going to get him. Bro, let me tell you, bro, I'm not the one. Just let it go. But you can find me at The Real Big Trist on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also the host of The Tristen Law Show, which you can find every single Wednesday when new episodes drop. Just type in TristenLawShow.com or go where you find podcasts. That's where you can find me.
You guys heard it here first. Tristen Law. It sounds like he didn't appreciate my open challenge. However, we'll see what happens as this year progresses. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my former tag team partner, half of Law of Attraction, Tristen Law. I'm still going to, as the humble guy I am, I'm still going to thank you for being part of this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the cheapest wrestler in the world. This was my wrestling journey, episode 3, Law of Attraction featuring Tristen Law. We'll see you guys real soon.
Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. That shirt you're wearing is so not cool. Why don't you head on over to TristenLawShow.com and get yourself a new shirt. Not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. What are you waiting for? Go now and get a hat too while you're at it. Thank me later. We're the show at TristenLawShow.com. Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. We're looking to promote your band or brand here on the Tristen Law Show. Contact the show at TristenLawShow.com or send us an email at TristenLawShow@gmail.com for more info. I will tell you this, Matt had me a little upset, a lot upset in the end. He's supposed to know better than to call me out. He knows I'm not a fan of that. I don't subscribe to that. He even had the audacity to make a comment about how he felt after he called me out on his YouTube channel on his version of this interview. There's a whole other version of this interview on his YouTube channel, and I will post the link in the description. But why didn't he say what he had to say when my face was next to his face on the screen? I'll take it at the time that he had buyer's remorse. But you know what, bro? Don't worry. If you want it, you can get it. It's free. Well, what did you think about this bonus episode, huh? Go listen to another episode. Actually, if you're new here, listen to the other bonus episodes. Because they'll give you a good starting point of which episodes you may want to check out in full. Next week, I'm going to have Johnny Radke from Long Island. He's a pro wrestler and a radio guy too, just like me. He comes from the NYWC Pro Wrestling School in Deer Park, New York. And it's a great interview, and trust me, you don't want to miss that one. If you like this episode, I need a favor from you. Yes, I am talking to you. Share this episode on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to tag myself for the show. Don't make this be the thing that you do, make this be the thing that we do. You can also walk up to a random stranger and tell them to listen to the Tristen Law Show. Yeah, they may think you're crazy, but who cares what other people think, right? Fine. If you're worried about being judged, go on over to TristenLawShow.com and at least buy a shirt. People will think that you're really cool. Rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, please. Reviews mean a lot. Whichever podcast platform you're using to listen, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. The best part is that it's free. Learn about myself and the Tristen Law Show by typing TristenLawShow.com in your internet-enabled device for more info. I'll be waiting for you until next week. I'm Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show. And until next time, adios.